Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the fascinating contrast between the massive macro-level mechanics of political polarization and the highly effective micro-level communication tools used by indigenous cultures to build mutual understanding. If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by the constant conflict in the news, or honestly, just frustrated by a tense meeting at work where everyone is talking but nobody is actually listening, you are in the right place. We're going to look at the very architecture of how conflicts are built, and then, as a conflict resolution expert, I'm going to teach you a centuries-old technique to deconstruct them.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the architecture of crisis politics, look at polarization and threat perception, explore the talking stick tradition, dive into the power of mirroring, and finally, end with achieving mutual understanding. Let's get right to it.
Section 1. The architecture of crisis politics. To fix the micro, we really have to understand the macro. When people feel like society is under a severe threat, political science shows us they become significantly more likely to support strong, decisive leadership. And this isn't an accident, right? It's a highly documented strategy known as crisis politics, or the politics of threat perception. When a population genuinely believes a situation is dangerous and that their existing institutions are failing them, they are far more willing to back a leader who presents themselves as the unique, ultimate solver of that problem.
Now, check out this 5-step playbook. What's absolutely fascinating is that this isn't isolated to just one party or one country. Political scientists have observed this exact pattern in leaders across the entire political spectrum, everyone from Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan to Hugo Chavez and Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The formula is consistent. Identify a threat, emphasize the extreme urgency of it, create a really strict us versus them dynamic, present yourself as the cure, and then mobilize your supporters.
And this divide perfectly showcases how the strategy is interpreted today, especially regarding modern figures like Donald Trump. We are looking at two entirely different realities here. Critics will tell you this is a deliberate strategy of fear designed purely to consolidate power and divide issues into opposing camps. But look at the supporter side. They see a candid, refreshing recognition of actual problems that political elites have ignored for decades. Where critics see a shift to toxic personal conflict, supporters see a completely necessary fight against hostile media and entrenched bureaucracies.
Section 2. Polarization and threat perception. Notice how the framing completely dictates the reality. Academic critics often argue that crisis politics just diverts our attention away from deep, structural concerns, things like wealth inequality, housing, and healthcare. They argue the daily drama is just a massive distraction. Supporters, however, counter that issues like immigration, national security, and trade disputes literally are the structural concerns that need urgent addressing. This whole dynamic creates an environment where a standard debate over policy details morphs into a rigid, high-stakes conflict between identity groups. By constantly operating in this high-stakes environment, research in political psychology shows certain emotions, specifically fear, anger, and a heightened group identity, are incredibly effective at rallying a base. It gets people out to vote, it packs rallies, and it drives donations, for sure. But the ultimate cost? It heavily prioritizes winning and point scoring over true, productive dialogue. Compromise becomes nearly impossible when you genuinely perceive the other side not just as wrong, but as a direct threat. Which brings us to this profound indigenous proverb: listen, or your tongue will keep you deaf. As someone who teaches teams how to navigate conflict, this is exactly where I want to pivot this explainer. We've spent time diagnosing the macro-level problem, but now I want to offer you a concrete, workshop-style solution you can apply directly to your own lives and workplaces.
Section 3. The talking stick tradition.
We're going to explore the profound wisdom of the Native American talking stick tradition to see how we can break the cycle of point scoring. I absolutely love this specific detail. The stick was traditionally kept on the west wall of the home. Why? So that even the youngest, smallest child could reach it and initiate a conversation. It immediately establishes that this tool is about recognizing the inherent worth, dignity, and voice of every single individual. It completely dismantles power imbalances right from the start, whether you're in a living room or a corporate boardroom.
The rules of the talking stick are strict, but honestly, they are so liberating. The core rule is simple. Only the person holding the stick may speak. Absolutely no interruptions. Listeners are required to drop their personal agendas. And here's the kicker, the absolute hardest part for most of us. You cannot formulate a rebuttal in your head while the other person is talking. By ensuring there are zero interruptions, participants are freed from that relentless, exhausting urge to defend their position. It creates an amazing space for radical honesty.
Section 4. The power of mirroring. I really want to focus on this core mechanism as a step-by-step tutorial for your professional teams. If you're taking notes, this is a masterclass in active listening. When the stick is passed to you, you don't get to just launch into your counterargument. Step 4 is the magic. The new holder must mirror or echo exactly what they just heard. You literally cannot move your own agenda forward until you prove to the original speaker that you've accurately understood their perspective without any of your own filters or assumptions. You keep echoing until they say, "Yes, that is exactly what I meant." This verification process acts as a total circuit breaker, stopping dispute escalation dead in its tracks. Let's look at a tense workplace scenario. Say marketing is blaming engineering for a massively delayed product launch. Usually, people are just talking over each other, getting super defensive. But if you implement mirroring, the engineering lead has to hold the metaphorical stick and say, "What I hear you saying, marketing, is that you feel completely blindsided and unsupported because the timeline shifted without notice." They have to validate the feeling before they can even begin to explain the technical delay. This prevents the exact misunderstandings that fuel our daily conflicts and drastically reduces defensiveness across the board.
Section 5. Achieving Mutual Understanding.
Let's look at how this ancient wisdom fundamentally upgrades the culture of our modern lives. Whether it's that tense workplace meeting, a complex community issue, or a messy family dispute, utilizing the talking stick and mirroring techniques creates profound psychological safety. It completely eliminates the toxic habit of point scoring. Because the stick ensures everyone is heard, from the CEO down to the newest intern, it automatically addresses structural power imbalances. It validates everyone involved and transforms a stressful confrontation into a genuinely meaningful dialogue, revealing the underlying struggles that surface-level arguments almost always miss. To summarize our entire journey today, on one side, we have the macro-level world of crisis politics, where the ultimate goal is winning, scoring points, and mobilizing through fear. On the completely opposite side, we have the micro-level tradition of the talking stick, where the goal is mutual understanding, fostering psychological safety, and allowing for radical vulnerability. We can choose the exhausting path of constant division and defense, or we can choose the courageous path of empathy and connection.
Which leaves us with this powerful question to reflect on as we wrap up. In a world totally addicted to crisis and point scoring, how can you become the circuit breaker in your next difficult conversation? The next time you find yourself in a heated discussion with your team, remember the mirroring technique. Focus on echoing before you argue. I hope this explainer has given you both the structural knowledge and the practical workshop tools to listen just a little more deeply today. Remember, mutual understanding doesn't mean you have to agree. It just means you have to listen. Thanks for joining me on The Explainer.